With many years of paranormal investigating under our belt, there has been some amazing evidence collected from some amazing locations. Many of these locations have not been featured in any video from 4State Paranormal, nor do all of our investigations make it to haunting history. We are opening the vault and bringing you inside some of our most memorable investigations and telling you our story firsthand. So take a trip with us as we explore our haunted past. One of the first places as paranormal investigators of Southwest Missouri that we investigated was the Kendrick place in Carthage, Missouri. The property was bought in the early 1800s, and then this house was built around the mid 1800s. It's seen a lot of activity there from the Civil War. In fact, they said that during the Civil War, there was when they burned the city of Carthage, you could actually sit on the second floor balcony and you could see some of the fires raging in Carthage. Ultimately, some of the Civil War soldiers did show up there, and they used the house as a field hospital. They also moved a slave quarters or a slave shack to the location, to the property. Now, it's not the original slave shack, but it is in the spot or around the general vicinity of where the original one was. The Kendricks did have slaves, but they were anti-Confederacy. When we first investigated there, we naturally took a tour of the house, and that was when we captured our first EVP there. The audio clip is more of like a residual imprint. It wasn't anything that we noticed, it wasn't anything that we heard, but it did imprint on the recorder, and it's not a voice. What we captured is something that sounded like glass shattering, as if somebody had thrown a rock through the window. Nobody heard this at the time, so we didn't acknowledge it, but it's pretty prominent on the recorder's audio.
Used to come back out in the back, and when the war, the soldiers worked off the house.
Used
to come back out in the back, and when the war, the soldiers worked off.
Later that evening, we kept hearing voices. One of the first ones that we heard was captured by Gene and Mike. As they were coming down the stairs from the second floor, they both heard a man say, "Hey." And on the recorder, you could just barely hear it, but there's something there.
Yeah. See what happens, you know. Is that you?
No, it wasn't me.
So after they had heard this voice, we decided that we were going to take a break, and Gene and Mike had gone outside to smoke while I was inside, and I was dumping audio onto a laptop and just kind of clearing space on our recorders. Well, as I'm doing so, I heard from what sounded like it came from the lobby area over the foot of the from the foot of the stairs. I heard this little girl just talking, and I stopped and I looked, and there's nobody there. And then Gene comes in, and I asked him, did you hear that? Did you hear anything? And he said no. Unfortunately, I wasn't recording because I was dumping the audio, and that was my first time ever hearing a disembodied voice. Later on that evening, we heard a lot of other sounds and things of that nature. And ultimately, we did come back several times. One time we came back with a news crew and a DJ from a local radio station. And we didn't capture a whole lot, but one of the most peculiar things that we did capture was the sound of footsteps that seemed to be coming into the room. We were upstairs, and we were there's a room that has 2 beds in it. And we're all spread out through the room, and I'm sitting on the floor, and I could hear the footsteps, and they're like, it was almost like, kind of like popping on the floor. You could feel it, and the DJ actually ended up feeling one of these pops or whatever, right underneath one of his feet.
If you can hear my voice, come upstairs. Come to the bedroom. Come to the west bedroom. Somebody moving? Those knocking sounds. Did somebody move?
The knock sounds too little. I'm not moving into spinning my. That's from underneath my foot.
So it's knocking underneath you? Yeah.
There's been a lot of incidences that have not been captured on video at this place, at this location. You know, everything from a door unlatching and opening. That story, Mike and I, we were in the kitchen. We had shut the door to the room adjoining the kitchen. And Mike's standing in front of the door, and I'm talking to Mike, and we hear the latch, and I look, and the door just starts swinging open. And we stop, and we're just like, we're amazed. We're flabbergasted. We had that. I've also heard the little girl in one of the upstairs bedrooms. We've had one of the most bizarre experiences I would say I've ever had. It's one of those things that, unless you experience it, you wouldn't believe that it even happened. We were sitting on the floor at the foot of a bed, and for whatever reason, I know how this is going to sound, but for whatever reason, the floor underneath myself and Mike almost bubbled up or raised, and it did so enough that when it happened, we just kind of went when it did. Like, he leaned that way, I leaned this way. And once that happened, we looked at each other and we were like, what the hell was that? We thought maybe, I don't know, something was about to bust in the pipes. We thought something was wrong, so we went downstairs, because right under that room is the air conditioning unit, and we knew some pipes were running from that section up into the ceiling, but we didn't find anything wrong. So whatever that was, it was bizarre. I've seen shadows in this slave shack that they had moved there. I don't know if it was like a slave or anything. I can't say that. All I can say is I've seen a shadow. I thought it was somebody outside, so I ran around the building to see and make sure, but I didn't find anybody. The Kendrick place is one of those places that, historically speaking, it's very significant and it's amazing. The only downside to that is there's nobody helping keep this place afloat. It is kind of run down. They've got a lot of issues now, and they need funding. They need support. Otherwise, something could happen and this place goes away. It's a very vital piece of history in Southwest Missouri, and if you ever get a chance to go take a tour, go take a tour. It's definitely a beautiful place to see.